in my lab, we really interesting and focus in the regeneration of the infant myocardium. So we do a lot of the thing to analyze how the regeneration things, the cell biology and molecular biology, and also the environment. What's the environment that should be benefit to the regeneration of the infant myocardium, something like that. So in around 4 years ago, something. So when we poke using the c-kit antibody to poke our sectioning from the heart, we find a lot of the small long structure, and it looks like it's the cell structure something. At that moment, we reviewed the other people, the paper, the practical data. So we found it, the Professor Wu, they firstly to report it, there is the plant cell, and also some cell look like the morphology, like telocytes existing in the cardiomyocyte. So we further check our finding, and then finally we also confirm those smaller, longer structure is a cell, also is morphology is very similar to the telocyte. So at that moment, so we really interested in that. Since we found a lot of cells, such as you can see my slide. So at the beginning we found they're very long. So I think this cell should be important, and then we really interested in it. So we do a lot of things and try to understand what's the function and the role about this cell in the myocardium.
So you and Professor Popescu, you saw the same cell?
Yeah, I think so.
Seems
yes. Well, yeah, seems yes. At the beginning we think of this very strange cell morphology. So and then we checked the other paper and found Professor who also confirmed this cell exists. So when we compare the finding, it looked like it's quite similar. So at that moment, we really recognize that the cardiotelocyte should be existing in the myocardium.
So you start the research in the field of telocytes after that moment, and what has been the most important key points in on the road?
You know, in the medical science, when we're talking about the cell, when these cells you find it in somewhere, it should be the important. Also, they should be have a function. But sometimes we may just not well identify them. So since I found those cells, this cell until now still not a lot of people they really pay the focus in there. Since this cell morphology at the beginning, a lot of people they neglect these things. So when we found those things, we think this quite important, I think.
We want to know the story behind the first transplant with the telocyte that you have made this year, I think. Yes. Yeah. This year. What's the story?
Last year.
Last year.
Yeah.
Last year.
You know, so the first thing is that when we found this cell in the myocardium, we really want to know, since we think that those cells, if they exist in the myocardium, whether or not they will experience any change when the myocardial infarction happening in the heart. So the first day I investigate the ischemic situation of the heart. We found that those networks is destroyed. So when we found those results, we think something more further, possibly this cell, telocyte should be helpful. So we transplant those cells in our model. We found indeed they can improve the myocardial function, also can decrease the infarct size.
I would like to summarize the main results of your study with the telocytes. About the ejection fraction, what are the main results of the study?
We inject those cells in the infarct myocardium, in the border zone and the infarction, and then we found it after the injection in the 2 weeks, and recently we also finished our work in the 14 weeks. after transplantation, the infarct myocardium infarct size was decreased, and also their myocardial function is improved, increased. And also some of our recent finding, we found that, just I show you in the talk, they decrease the fibrosis of the infarct myocardium. And those parameter is, I think, is quite important for the regeneration of the infarct myocardium. So,
looks very promising.
Yeah.
It looks very, very promising.
Yeah.
And what's next for you in your lab?
You mean the next plan?
Next.
Yeah. For my plans, the one thing is that for the telocyte cell, we really want to look at the long-term effect. How when you transplanting in the infarct myocardium, they still can provide the protective effect, the long-term effect. The second thing is that I really want to know whether or not those cells mixed with the other source of cells, such as the stem cell. No matter what is the cardio endogenous stem cell, also the exogenous stem cell, and try to look at whether they can put the more potent and therapeutic effect or not in the infarct myocardium. This is our next plan and ongoing process in my lab.
I would like to ask you about the cooperation with Professor Popescu and his team from here, from Bucharest. How do you cooperate with the Romanians?
I think Professor Popescu is a pioneer. We know each other and discuss a lot of the idea, and then he also give me a lot of the good suggestion, and then we also discussing some funding in when he visiting our lab and also in the meeting. And I expect that if we probably in the future, if we got times or got chance, we can working more closely, such as we focus in some dimension about the telocyte, and also if possible we can try to make the chance to apply some funding and to work more closely, something like that.
How far we are from the first clinical trials with the humans, and to prove the benefits of the therapy with the telocytes on the humans?
You know, in my lab, all the work now still only in the animal situations. From my opinion, if we want to move further, the important thing is that we need to confirm how the long-term effect of those telocyte therapy, something like that. And another important thing is that we need to do more basic science to demonstrate that, and those transplantation is safety and no more any side effect, something like that, before we go to the clinic.
And my final question is about the best scenario for the telocyte, the most optimistic. What will be the most optimistic scenario?
I think there's no doubt that the telocyte should be a very important functional cell in the myocardium, and then they may be a lot of the functioning supporting for the other kind of the cell in the heart, such as the myocyte and also the endogenous cardiac stem cell and also the angiogenesis of the myocardium. So we need to do more and then investigate their role first, and then we may got the chance to tailor some novel strategy, also the therapy for the regeneration of the infarct myocardium.
So the telocytes has the potential to change the way we treat the myocardial infarction.
They got a chance, the very high potential. Seems they made a lot of the support effect for the other kind of cell. So if we rebuild the myocardium, it's no doubt that this cell is also critically important when compared to other major cells in the heart, such as the myocyte and other cells.